Hi, this is Serene Tefaha from Advocate Me. We wanted to do this video to try and provide some assistance to our community in trying to understand the legal framework and the sections that apply in terms of the federal framework of management of public health risks and emergency powers, as well as the state and territories. I will be using Victoria as an example in this video just to draw out those differences and try to understand how they reconcile. There is a lot of hate at the moment out there, and this question isn't about masking and anti-masking and vaxxing and anti-vaxxing. This is about laws. This is about trying to understand our legislative framework. Our legislative framework doesn't operate on one section. It operates on a framework. And what that means is that it's a series of laws that are meant to be read and understood in context. Now, the public health risks, especially national public health risks, a legislative framework that is on the national level operates through the Biosecurity Act 2015. Now, please, I'm asking a lot of people. Everybody wants me to repeat this or write to them a certain email or that. I'm giving you this as assistance pending our class action. So please, you go Google those sections and Google these laws, but I'm going to be clear about what they are. Biosecurity Act 2015. Look it up. It's a long piece of legislation, but I will give you some guidance in terms of which sections to go to. This Biosecurity Act sits on top of that framework, and it gives itself the priority when it comes to public health risks. What do I mean it gives itself its priority? Section 8 of the Biosecurity Act is very clear how it's intended to apply to interact with the states and territories. It's a legislation that sets itself up as the boss, okay? So it says, I am the important one here. And how does it do that is this. It basically says it does not exclude or limit the operation of a law or a state that is capable of operating concurrently with this act. That means it cannot be inconsistent with this act. That means what the states and territories want to do with their laws and however way they want to apply them, it has to be concurrent with the Biosecurity Act. I haven't said that. The Biosecurity Act has said that. The federal legislator has said that, okay? Secondly, it also gives a specific carve-out. Subsection 1, subject to the following provision, meaning except for, it'll act concurrently and we won't exclude the states and territories laws except when it comes to emergency directions in relation to emergency powers when they're played out. The Biosecurity Act gives itself a number one priority. So I'm not making this up. This is in Section 8 of the Biosecurity Act, okay? Then, when can a state of emergency be declared? Section 475 of the Biosecurity Act on a federal level ensures and it sets out how the Governor-General can do so. And the Governor-General on the 18th of March 2020 declared a state of emergency. Now, the states and territories can do so as well, as long as it's acting concurrently with the Biosecurity Act, and especially when it comes to emergency directions, it has to ensure that the Biosecurity Act rules are the ones that's followed, okay? I didn't say that. The federal legislator did. So please stop getting angry. Then, Section 477 sets out the requirements for the federal health minister making and determining emergency requirements during a human biosecurity emergency period. And this is very clear in terms of what the federal health minister can decide. And this is what he can decide. The requirements that apply to persons, goods or conveyances when entering or leaving specified places. I'm reading here from subsection 3, section 477. Requirements for specified places to be evacuated and movement of persons, goods or conveyances and if a recommendation has been made or referred to in relation to these requirements. Okay, now that's very important here, that the Biosecurity Act Section 477 is restricting it, the emergency requirements to those things, meaning that you can't do things on a particular individual that they call the biosecurity measure can only do. Meaning, you can't do certain things that includes diagnosing, taking body samples, asking people to wear a clothing or equipment, such as a mask, for example, vaccinating, medicating, testing, contact tracing. These things can't just be done to a group of people pursuant to our federal top boss legislation, okay? You can't just come up and go, yeah, we're going to do all of that to you. No. Why? Because the important thing is that we're looking here at an assessment of health risks. That means it's only when you can show that you are exposed to a risk to the disease, or you have signs and symptoms of that disease, can a person authorized to do so give you a specific requirement. That means no laws, no policy can require you to be bodily sampled, vaccinated, detained, isolated, clothing, masks. I'll go through all of the list of the biosecurity measures under the Biosecurity Act. You can't be required to do those things unless it is under strict circumstances. And what are those strict circumstances? Those circumstances are captured under sections 60 and 61. What does section 60? Again, this is not me saying this. This is the Biosecurity Act saying this, okay? So section 60 of the Biosecurity Act tells you what you need to do before you impose a biosecurity control order on someone and when you can impose it. And essentially, it's when the individual has one or more signs or symptoms of a listed human disease, or the individual has been exposed to a listed human disease, or another individual has one or more of the signs of a listed individual disease, or the individual has failed to comply with an entry requirement, okay, which is basically if you are sick on entry of the country as well, you need to be isolating. But that's only if you're sick, only if you have signs and symptoms, and only if an authorized officer can do so. Now, it's not enough that you just be told this. Section 61 of the Biosecurity Act specifies what has to be on the order that's issued to you. Once we show that you are at risk, that means that you have the signs and symptoms and we can contact trace the person that you've been exposed to, then we can give you a number of different requirements. Only under those circumstances. Perfectly healthy people should not be required to do anything, because the presumption under the Biosecurity Act, as I said again, is that you are healthy until you're proven sick. You are innocent until you're proven guilty, not the other way around. And people get enrolled for the sake of everyone. For the sake of everyone. That's not how science works. For the sake of everyone. How science works is in relation to the identification of risk. Where you're a risk, then measures can be taken. It can't be taken on a group. Oh, we're just going to direct the whole bunch of you. All of you. Get vaccinated. Yeah, I don't think so. And people get, oh, what are you saying? We have to comply. Well, I'm not saying this. This is a legislative framework that has been studied very, very closely from both the window of legalities and science. Okay? We're not here to peddle dogma. We're here to peddle science. And science says that we will ask you to do things when we've determined you're a risk. So if your employer is saying to you, oh, you need to be vaccinated, no, you can't require me to do so. Are you an authorised officer? No. Am I a risk, and has a medical practitioner assessed my infectious risk status? No. Have you issued me a biosecurity control order specifying the reasons and everything? No. Then you can't require me. You can recommend it, but you can't require me to do so because there's no serious public health risk that I need to mitigate. And I'm sorry, if you're an employer and you haven't been authorised, you don't have the right to make that as policy, okay? Policy has to be lawful, has to be based on the laws, okay? There's laws for that purpose. Now, what is constituted by a biosecurity control order is this. Section 61 of the Biosecurity Control Order of the Biosecurity Act. A human biosecurity control order that is enforced in relation to an individual must specify the following: the ground under which the order is imposed on the individual, the listed human disease in relation to which the order is imposed on the individual, any signs or symptoms to be listed to the human listed disease, the prescribed contact information provided by the individual. So you can't just say, oh, I kind of think you've been exposed. No, you have to actually identify the person, a unique identifier code for the actual order, so it can't just be the generic one that's thrown out by government. Each biosecurity measure which the individual must comply with, and an explanation why each biosecurity measure is required in relation to anything, such as decontamination, examination, body samples, vaccination, etc. Any information required to be included, and in the period which the order is in force, which must not be more than 3 months. And I can't find the other part of my legislation. Oh yes, and in relation to being issued the appropriate rights of review, which is very important. Rights of review. Okay? We have rights of review in this country, and they don't go away simply because government says, nah, on this occasion it goes away. Nah, we don't want it anymore. Human lives. There is something called a balance, and we need to be balanced because we do not have the statistics around us that says that we need to jump to an unbalanced state. And everybody getting angry and thumping their hands on the table. Oh, no, you are. There's laws. You don't need to be going, oh. They're just trying to provoke us against each other, folks. But there's laws. Okay? It comes back down to the laws. And none of their lawyers have been able to answer me. Okay? Because there's weight to what I'm saying. Okay? You're presumed healthy before you're being sick. Okay? You're not presumed sick and have to prove your health. Alright? These are archaic laws, archaic thinking. This is dogma. So you open your eyes and stop being so aggressive. What are the biosecurity measures? What are the things that they have to follow these processes for? They can't require you. No one can require you to give contacts unless you've been ordered under a biosecurity control order. The health status, biosecurity control order. Restricting behavior, biosecurity control order. Clothing and equipment, a biosecurity control order. You don't tell healthy people to be masked. That's not how we work in this country. It's not how it works, okay? It's not, okay? Especially when we're social distancing. Especially when we have other measures. Especially when we've got RCTs stating that there are issues with cloth masks, wearing it all the time in the community, and it's not really effective and we don't have high quality data. No, the Lancet said observational study, do it. All of a sudden, every other study before goes out the window, even random clinical trials. Because the government said it. The Equal Opportunity Commission said it's okay. So is the police. So is the Vic Bar. Everyone said it's okay, therefore it's okay. Well, I'm reading these laws. I'm not making them up. You go and research them. Section 88, clothing, equipment, biosecurity measure. You need to follow the rules. Decontamination. Section 90, undergoing examination. Section 91, requiring body samples for diagnosis. And please look this up. Look it up. Okay, look it up. Receiving vaccination. So when your employer or your university says, oh, you're required to be vaccinated. Well, I'm sorry. Have I been issued a biosecurity control order? That's the only time you can require me. Otherwise, you can't. Otherwise, it's just a recommendation. So you can tell that to your employer or anyone who's requiring you or putting it in any criteria in a form that you have to be vaccinated. Okay? It's your body, your choice, unless you're sick and unless there's an actual reason for you to be vaccinated or to be medicated, and a lot of hurdles have to be jumped and you're given your review rights, then no, it cannot be done. Not according to the law. Receiving medication, Section 93. Section 94, appropriate medical or other standards to be applied. And no use of force, okay? No use of force. And then, of course, travel and movement measures and isolation measures. It pretty much touches on everything that can be done to you. So how does that sit with the states? Well, I'll tell you how that sits. The states are everywhere. And the territories, their laws sticky taped together and measures thrown here and there and no consistency with the Biosecurity Act. Let's look at Victoria, Section 200 of the Public Health and Mental Wellbeing Act. They're pinning their whole hat on Section 200. Oh, we're doing everything under Section 200. Forget about the rest of the law. Close your eyes. We don't care. No, Section 200, detainment. That's it. Nah. Section 200. Not listening anymore. Well, there's laws. Public Health and Mental Wellbeing Act is a long legislation. And there's been recent amendments to bring it in line with the Biosecurity Act. Section 117. So Section 200 has not been changed since the year 2008. But Section 117 and 123 were introduced recently to bring them in line. And let's read them. Let's read what they say. Again, Section 117 says you need to issue a person a public health order, similar to what a biosecurity control order says. The Chief Health Officer may, having regard to the factors specified in subsection 2, make a public health order if the Chief Health Officer believes that a person has an infectious disease or has been exposed to an infectious disease in circumstances where a person is likely to contract the disease, and if a person is infected with an infectious disease, a serious risk to public health is constituted by the infectious disease or the combination of infectious disease and the likely behavior of that person. And it goes on, and it talks about the factors that need to be considered. But again, you're healthy until proven guilty, until proven sick. You're not sick until proven healthy, okay? That's how it works. That's how science works. That's how prevention of disease and disease management works, okay? And just because you test positive does not mean you're infectious, so get over it. Get over it. It is settled. This point is settled, okay, in terms of the fact that the tests are not actually confirming diagnoses. Okay, we need to be told how many people have recovered. So what's in a public health order? It must be in writing. Identify the person to whom the order applies. Specify the purpose of the order. Specify the infectious disease which the Chief Health Officer believes the person has been exposed to. Explain why the Chief Health Officer believes the person is infected with the infectious disease or has been exposed to the infectious disease in circumstances where the person is likely to contract the infectious disease. specify the period, explain the person's rights and entitlements under the Act and the process for making an application to review under VCAT, contain a statement the person should seek legal advice, and explain that if the person does not comply with the order, that the person commits an offence and is liable to a penalty not exceeding 120 penalty units. And it goes on in relation to the types of things that you can do, including refraining from visiting a place, residing at a specified place, refraining from specified forms of behaviour, submitting to supervision of a person nominated, including attending meetings, receiving visits, etc., receiving a prophylaxis, including a specified vaccination, undergoing specified pharmacological treatment of the infectious disease from a registered medical practitioner, and submit to being detained or isolated, or detained and isolated as specified. So thank you. Contradictions within their own legislation. Section 117 is contradicting Section 200. You don't just go around willy-nilly detaining anyone and everyone as you see fit. That's not reasonable. That's not how the legislation is meant to be. That's not how the Biosecurity Act works. Oh, it's an emergency. Anything goes. Yeah, on for old for young, whatever. They can do whatever they want. Science. Oh, forget about that. And enforcement orders. If you don't comply, there are processes as well. And it's only then that you can possibly call the police at the end line of that. And that would have to be pretty serious. So these are the laws. This is how they apply. We say that the states and territories legislation have to run concurrently with the Biosecurity Act, and where they're in conflict, where they're in consistency, clearly the Biosecurity Act takes precedence. Okay? So these are the processes. So when you're asked to do something, or when you're required to do something, you should ask, have I been issued the right documentation? Has my infectious disease status been ruled as having a risk? And only then do I need to then be ordered to do certain things. So yes, there is a legislative framework for dealing with that, and I suggest that you all look at that closely. I've given you the Biosecurity Act 2015 and the State of Victoria. There are, of course, similar provisions that run across all states and territories, but it's beyond the capacity of this video. We will be issuing our information shortly, and in terms of the class action, and we look forward to most Australians signing up for common sense. Common sense, yes, I'm going to say it, common sense. There are certain things that we should not be fear-mongering here. Fear-mongering. Oh, Daniel Andrews, oh, COVID is a bushfire. How dare you say that, Daniel Andrews? How dare you? 500 million animals died in the bushfire. Thousands and thousands of people were impacted, and now we're creating impacts that are not necessary to manage thoughtfully, in accordance to our legislation, the associated risks without going mad. So, enjoy your night, and we will be watch our space very carefully, and that information will be coming very shortly your way. The forms and everything will be, so watch our space here. All right, have a good night.